drinks at the same time. Some people say you should drink before or after, but not during a meal. Is that true?
You're not talking about alcoholic beverages.
No, just normal water.
Yeah, I think it's normal for us to hydrate when we eat. What some people are talking about is sometimes when we hydrate too much, we dilute the hydrochloric acid.
Right.
Many of us, as we get older, even though we suffer from GERD or gastric esophageal reflux disease and we feel like our stomachs are more acidic, actually, our stomachs are more sensitive, and oftentimes we're not secreting enough acid. What I always say with things like that, in terms of choosing your diet, as long as you're not eating like synthetic foods, as long as you're eating healthy foods, listen to your body. Right. Develop a relationship with your body where you listen to how your digestive system functions. What I really say in terms of both weight loss and health, keep a food diary. It's really easy to do with smartphones now. Heck, you can take pictures of everything you eat before you eat it. So you have a record of what you've eaten and the quantities you've eaten. That's the most important thing we could do, is really have that kind of an awareness. A lot of us, we're so busy, we're so crazy, we just forget about what we're sort of brain dead. We're kind of robots when we're shoving food into our face, and we forget how important that is, that is, even depending on the doctors you might read or the experts you might read, most of them will say, at a minimum, that over half of the major health issues we suffer from in life, whether it's going to be cancer or heart disease, things like that, is diet and lifestyle related. Some will say over 80%. And I'm more on that 80% side. So we, again, have incredible power. What I wanted to show quickly on the berberine, because berberine is an ingredient that's closely related to curcumin. But berberine, like curcumin, originally it was an herb, but look how bright yellow color that is. And it was also used for coloring. And there's no real need for synthetic dyes and colors when you see how bright turmeric is. Turmeric is bright orange, that berberine is bright yellow. And even if you look at our fruitful antioxidants product, it's bright purple. There's all sorts of natural choices if you want to color a product that they don't have to use, like all the multivitamins out there. Most of them contain yellow number 5 and yellow number 6. Berberine is in tiny concentrations is an incredibly rich, bright yellow color.
You shocked me, Andrew, when you said this earlier. Do you think that people really care about the color of the vitamins? It just seems so inane. It seems crazy.
Well, I think if we don't think about it and we don't recognize that those are artificial colors, certainly I would think if I ever made a tablet and had colors, you'd think, oh, Andrew's using turmeric or berberine or berries to color it. We don't think that those large vitamin companies are supposedly